Who's in and who's out? My final 53-man roster projection for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Deke news. First, let me go over the 41 players that I think are locks to make the team. I will go over this as quickly as possible. At quarterback, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky. Running backs, Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren. Wide receiver, Deontay Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin. Tight ends, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward. Offensive line, Dan Moore, Broderick Jones, Isaac Seumalo, Kevin Dotson, Mason Cole, James Daniel, Chuks Okorafor, and Nate Herbig. D-line, Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Larry Ogunjobi, DeMarvin Leal, Montravius Adams. Inside linebacker, Cole Holcomb, Quan Alexander, Landon Roberts, and Mark Robinson. Cornerback, Pat P., JPJ, and Levi Wallace. Edge rushers, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, Marcus Golden. Safeties, Mega Fitzpatrick, DeMonte Casey, Keanu Neal. And special teams, Chris Boswell at kicker, Presley Harvin at punter, and for long snapper, Christian Kuntz. So those are the 41 players that I have no doubt about making this team. I think they're locks. Their roster status is not up for debate. But that leaves 12 open roster spots, and I have this broken up into tiers. So I have 7 players listed as likely to make the team, and then that leaves the last 5 in, and then also the first 5 out. So you guys can then agree, disagree with me down in the comments. But now let's talk about the 7 players I have listed as likely to make this team. First, Mason Rudolph. Yeah, Mason is going to be back. I have little doubt about this one. Probably should have included him in the locks, but wanted to throw some added suspense in there. Not only is he back because of the new third quarterback rule on game day where you could dress a third quarterback and it's not going to kill you for an extra roster spot, but also he is a valuable asset to the quarterback room. Along with Mitch, they're going to help out Kenny with what they're seeing out there. The second guy out of the 7 likelies, I have Chandon Sullivan. I think he's the best slot corner on this team. Now, I think before going into this Bills game, this was a little bit up in the air, but he was able to get the nice interception. I think he's our best coverage slot corner as well, proven to be a starter in the league over the last 4 years with the Green Bay Packers and Vikings. I don't think this is a guy that you just let walk like that. Next guy I have as a likely is defensive lineman Isaiah Loudermilk. I think he's looked his best thus far out of his whole career this preseason. And we could use the extra D-line depth. We drafted him. He's been around, familiar with the system. And I still think he's got some upside. Like, if he could continue to make the roster here going forward, continue to improve his game, he might mess around and be a part of that future D-line rotation that'll have Keanu Benton and Marvin Leal. Like, he could be a part of that big 3 potentially. And then these last 4 guys I have as likelies are making the squad because of their special teams. And first, Miles Killebrew, our special teams captain, proved again why he's valuable in that Bills preseason game. He's back. Tanner Muse, the special teams ace we signed from Seattle, he's been doing some good things in preseason. Again, I just think we're really valuing special teams recently. We're trying to turn over every stone just like Omar Khan has done in free agency, but with our units, not only offense, defense, and I also think special teams. We're trying to build like an all-star squad out there. Almost like what the Patriots were doing like the last couple decades, where their special teams were always really buttoned up and were able to get advantages on a week-in and week-out basis on Sundays. And I think the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, that's what they're going for. But the last 2 guys, we also got Miles Boykin, one of the best gunners in the league, and also a decent receiver. I've never seen him drop a pass. Seems to be reliable for us out there whenever we put him at receiver. And then gunner. I know this is one of the more controversial picks to make the team because a lot of people want him out, but Kenny likes him. He's quarterback friendly with his routes, can get open. And then also, he could do a lot of special team stuff, not only in the return game in case Calvin Austin got hurt or whatnot. He's a former All-Pro, but he could play some of the more traditional positions that are required for the special teams. So that leaves us with the last 5 in to make the Steelers 2023 roster. First, we got cornerback James Pierre. Yeah, I think Pierre is back. Now, I think this would be a different story if Corey Trice didn't get hurt. I think Corey Trice takes this spot. But since we only have 3 outside corners up to this point, in JPJ, Pat P, and Levi Wallace, I think we're going to keep around a 4th. And I think Pierre would be the guy that makes the most sense. He's been around with the team for the last couple years. can also do special team stuff. You could rely on him for certain packages like in dime and whatnot. And if, one of our top 3 got hurt, you can get out of a stadium. Look back last year against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Our secondary was absolutely decimated. Pierre had to play a lot of snaps, and he actually played pretty decent. But he's just not a guy you want to rely on for a month or more. So, yes, Pierre is one of the last 5 in. The second guy I have here, sticking with secondary, Elijah Riley. Dude just seems like a good all-around player to me. I think he's this year's version of Arthur Marlette for us. Dude could play slot corner. Don't think his specialty is in man coverage necessarily, but is better in run stopping. I think he'd be a good complement to Chandon Sullivan then. Those would be our 2 slot corners for 2023. But he's also making plays in special teams. It seems like anytime I look up at the TV, he's hunting someone down and making a tackle. But he's also versatile, could play some safety if we ask him to. So yeah, I think Elijah Riley, it's hard to justify not giving him a roster spot. Third guy of the last 5 in is Anthony McFarland. I just don't see a world where we don't keep 3 running backs, and McFarland seems to have that spot locked up. Has been doing a lot of good things in training camp, looked good in the first preseason game against the Buccaneers. Obviously, this last week wasn't a good showing, but I can't put that all on him because that second unit offensive line was doing him no favors. And don't forget about the speed. He could play special teams as well. I keep on talking about special teams with these last guys, but he was marked as our starting kick return man in Saturday's game. He's got the speed. Don't forget he's got the Maryland connection with Canada. I think that won't hurt him either. Next guy I have listed here is inside linebacker Nick Kwiatkowski. This one comes down to some of the uncertainty that still exists with our inside linebacker room. I'm really excited about all the new guys that we brought in. But 2 of the dudes we expect to play a prominent role are a little injury prone, in Cole Holcomb and also Quan Alexander. So to have another guy in Nick Kwiatkowski who has started before at inside linebacker in the league and started a decent amount doesn't hurt you. And again, he can also play special teams for us. Steelers have kept 6 inside linebackers in the past, and I think it would be smart to keep a guy like Nick Quick around. Now, the last guy, I'm going D-line, and this one's a toss-up to me. I think it comes down to either Braden Fehoko or Armon Watts. I'm leaning Braden Fehoko just because he's a little bit more of a true nose tackle and has that unique skill set, that unique body type where he could just clog up running lanes. Whereas Armon Watts, yeah, he could do that, but I think has a little more finesse to his game. So I'm going with the guy that has a little bit more of a unique skill set for the defensive line in Braden Fehoko. But I could see the Steelers going with Watts. I think that one's more of a toss-up. But that leaves us with our first 5 out. Armon Watts, obviously just mentioned him. He's going to be out. Again, I think this one just comes down to Fehoko and him. Which one do the Steelers value more? Next, Kendrick Green. It's over. It's time. We got to admit our mistake of drafting Kendrick Green in the 3rd round a couple years ago. He's a bust. And it's not like we haven't moved off of higher picked guys in the past in like the 2nd or 3rd round. Like Mike Adams, 2nd round pick, offensive tackle out of Ohio State, moved on from him after 2 years. Squez Golston, Dree Archer. Now it's got to be Kendrick Green. I just don't think he is an NFL offensive lineman. He looks outmatched out there. Got to see that again this preseason. We saw it last year's preseason, also in his rookie year. I think he's going to get someone hurt potentially. We've just seen too many times him getting cooked. His last-ditch chance to make the team was to play fullback, but we haven't even done that thus far in preseason. So I just think it's time. And I mentioned Elijah Riley as one of the last 5 in to make the team, and that's going to come at the expense of Trey Norwood. How do you pick Trey Norwood over Elijah Riley right now? They both have a very similar role. Versatile, safety, slot corner. But Elijah Riley has just done more out on the field, and he's been available, whereas Trey Norwood really didn't get to see too much of him in his sophomore year. And it sucks, too, because he showed a lot of promise after his rookie season, but for whatever reason, he couldn't see the field last year. And then he's just been not available this preseason. He's been injured, whereas Elijah Riley continues to make plays out there on tape. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I think Trey Norwood is going to be one of the cuts come 53-man roster decision day. Now, I would love for him to be on the practice squad, but I think he's good enough of a player that he's going to get picked up by another team, unfortunately. Now, this also leads me to another guy that I think will get picked up after being cut, and that's Zach Gentry. This one sucks, but I did the math. I'm digging through this. I even saw that last year we only kept 3 tight ends, and I think we're going to do it this year. I just don't see a world where we keep 4 of them. Last year we kept Muth, Gentry, and Connor Hayward. Only difference is we drafted Darnell Washington in the 3rd round to be Zach Gentry's replacement. Now the question was going to be, when was that going to happen? It wasn't a matter of if, but when. And I thought maybe it would be more towards the regular season, which would shore up Gentry's spot to make the squad. But we got to see Washington out there with the first team in this last Saturday's game. So it feels like the Steelers are ready to rip the Band-Aid off of what's already going to be inevitable, and that's Darnell Washington to be our new tight end 2 and be Muth's complement. Seems like they're ready to do that sooner rather than later. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't think Gentry's going to make the final cut. But for him, I do think he gets picked up by another team because he's a really good tight end too. And I think teams out there could really use a Gentry for sure. But then the last guy I have here is, and I'm up in the air on this one too, but Spencer Anderson, because I think he's looked good thus far in preseason. Obviously, he's really versatile on the offensive line. Could be our backup center. But I don't see us keeping 9 offensive linemen. And the unique thing about offensive linemen is this. Like, those dudes and quarterbacks are really the only guys that play 100% of the snaps. So in a perfect world, you got your 5 starting offensive linemen playing every snap on any given Sunday, right? As long as they stay healthy. And then, obviously, same thing with the quarterback. But other positions like edge rushers, cornerbacks, safeties, receivers, running backs, you can rotate dudes in and out. Like, TJ Watt is the best edge rusher in the NFL, but he's only playing 75 to 80% of the time. You don't do that with offensive linemen. So I think it's a tough call to keep 9 guys, because I already mentioned 8 that I have for locks. It's tough to keep 9 guys when 4 of them, given the right circumstances, aren't even going to be seeing the field. They're just going to be sitting around. Now, the case for Anderson is being that backup center for us, but the problem is the guys that I have making the roster, James Daniel, Isaac Seumalo, and also Nate Herbig, they have that center flexibility too. So, yeah, I think we're going to let Spencer Anderson go. Hopefully he gets picked up for the practice squad, but based off his performance in preseason, unfortunately, I could see another team picking him up. But that's it for my 53-man roster projection. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Is there anything that I'm missing here? But hope you guys enjoyed. Stay chilling, and peace.